at ECU.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And Kaye, are you ready?
I'm ready whenever you
All
are,
right.
and I welcome you all and thank you for coming.
Everybody, my name is Joseph Thomas, and I'm Assistant Director for Collections and Scholarly Communication here at East Carolina University. I've been fortunate to teach a couple of classes at in the library science program here at ECU, and to serve as an internship coordinator, not coordinator, but mentor with Kaye. And so she and I'll be talking together. Kaye, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kaye Dotson, and I am in the library science program. I have been director of the program, and have been internship supervisor of the program for the past 13, 14 years. I have a background too in the school systems, 20 years in the public school systems as a librarian, and so I'm able to bridge that gap and be able to serve in that way with our internships. And for this program today, we are going to talk with you about the ECU program. We're going to talk with you a little bit about how things have. Well, I've jumped right ahead of our title slide. Let me go to that since we've introduced ourselves. But as you see, our title is the Internship Pivot at ECU, responding to our university's transition. And this is interesting because our university, we've been online, but we had to make a transition. And so today we're going to share with you a little bit more about our program. We're going to talk with you about how internships were in the past. And then COVID came, and we had to adjust and take some issues into consideration and find tools and other strategies to use. And so we're going to share all this with you today. The program at ECU, we are an accredited program, ALA accredited, with a 39-hour graduate degree program. We have 3 concentrations that we offer, with some specialization in those concentrations, but primarily we do an academic, a library concentration, a public library concentration, and a schools. We have been preparing people since 1939, so that's a pretty long time. We began as an undergrad program when the library field required just an undergrad degree. And then we transitioned to a graduate degree and have been working since 1939. Our program is 100% online with asynchronous courses. And so it's especially attuned to the non-traditional learner. About 30, the average age of the students in our program is around 35, 37, in that range. They're all working. And so we've had a program that would fit people who had many other things on their plate, and it was 100% online. And then I want to talk with you primarily about the internship. The internship is a critical component of our program. I think, can we move ahead one slide? The internship was a critical component of our program, and it has been, it's required of everyone. It's mandatory. There's no exceptions to that. Everyone has to do an internship. And this has always presented some issues for us to deal with, but we do require 110 hours on site in the setting that the student chooses. Students are able to choose a setting, have been able to specialize, which is very nice. It gives them a chance to work in their field and in their specialty. If they're academic, there are so many opportunities, so many options. They may choose archives, they may choose music libraries. There's just many things, many specialties, and they are able to work in the setting that they choose. And they have worked in the past under the direction of a site supervisor. It's been a day-to-day experience. They've been able to be there with the person, seeing what went on, having someone to model and mentor for them the whole way. We used, even in the past, virtual and real-time observations. We've always done shadowing. We've attended professional conferences and meetings. And of course, in the past, these were in person. And the primary purpose of the internship has just been to provide an opportunity for students to work in library settings, applying the theory that they had learned in the coursework to what they are finding in the real life experience. And so both in theory and in practice, this has been an opportunity for students to fly under the supervision of a licensed pilot, if you will. We've always had certified, qualified site supervisors and directors to guide the students, as well as from our vantage point in the university, we have a university supervisor. So the three work together. And I do want to say, I don't know, I need to make this point. The internship is a site experience, but it also involves a course, an actual course that students do along with in the same time frame as they're doing their site experience. And we're able to work together and create opportunities, give ideas, support the intern from the university as well as from the site. And now let me talk about the internships in the past. I'll just a bit more. It's much the same. We're still doing the same thing. We have been in a synchronous program, but even so, it's not the same. We've had to change because while the internship has been an asynchronous course, the actual experience was on site. And so all of that went on site has to continue to go on and be offered in a way that students can continue to collaborate and to engage and to work together. And so that they have been able to continue doing this in the specialty that they've chosen. So they are still continuing to test drive their career and their choice and work directly with their contacts. And we're making this happen. We're going to share further tools and strategies with you as we move forward. Because when COVID came, things did have to change. The face-to-face experience from last March, it was over. The students were in mid-work, in the middle of projects and presentations, especially in the school setting, when they had to change. And so although we've had many virtual experiences in the past, current internships had to become entirely virtual. And they had to use tools like Zoom and WebEx and other forms. We made sure the interns were on board with the site that they were working with. They had to use whatever tools that site used. And so the interns were able to learn new formats and also bring their work to the site. As far as placements, this proposed a little bit of a problem because some site supervisors, after this time period, after this began, for the next group, some site supervisors were reluctant to take on an intern in a virtual environment. They already had their plates full, managing their own sites and their own, all the many hats they were wearing. And they weren't sure they wanted to work with an intern. But we did much the same thing. We had the interns to contact the site that they wanted, either a principal, a director, a head librarian. They would talk with them first, usually by phone, and and explain what they wanted, and then be directed towards the actual person who would supervise them. Sometimes the person would say no, but usually I would talk with them too. And at that point, we would usually be able to explain how it could work and what we could do. And most of the time they would say yes. We did have people who said no. They hesitated, they did not want to do it. And so we realized that is an option. And we know how important it is to match an intern with a supervisor that is willing to have them and skilled in the area that they need, skilled in the specialty that they need. And this is what we did before, and we're still doing this. We finally, after we determined the site, we have a memo of understanding, and it's signed by the intern and by the site supervisor and by the university supervisor. And once that is signed, the internship is official, it's underway, and interns are able to move ahead and do things that they have always done. And I will say this, in many ways, the virtual internship has been helpful. It has allowed students to attend more meetings because they're virtual. Their site supervisors invite them to attend meetings. So many times the site supervisor will make an effort during the meeting to introduce this intern and to share something about them. They're able to meet more people, get their names out there and their faces out there, because sometimes at these meetings, whether it's a school board meeting or some public library director meeting, these interns are able to be seen by a person who may very well be the one who can hire them in the future. So that's been good, and that has been helpful. But we have been able to see very good experiences through this. And there are many things that won't change, even though if we ever go back to the way it was, to the way we were, there may be some things that we'll go back to, but many things will not change because we found it can work. But I will say this, supervisors, site supervisors have in many cases been challenged to find projects that could be done well, authentically. And some of these culminating projects have been modified. Some of the ones they've done in the past, they've been modified to be delivered virtually, and just in a different format. The beauty of so many of these projects, if it's an in-service presentation, we have students to do presentations to faculty, primarily because we want them to have an opportunity to show their leadership. We want them to be seen by the patrons, directors, faculty, and of course, students. We want our interns to be seen as experts in their field. We want them to be seen as leaders. And they're able to do this so many times through presentations and introducing resources or materials and creating resources for those that they're working for those at their site. And so they've been able to do that. But the beauty of this is that in many cases, a director, a librarian, or someone will say, I want to use that again. And they will record this because it's virtual and it can be recorded and it can be used again. Because, you know, in many things, and especially in teaching, teachers use units from year to year at the time that it comes up. And when you have it already prepared virtually, you can add as you need to, you can modify as you choose. But this is work that can count. So we have found that to be a great boon for people. Your work is not just one and done, it continues. Site supervisors too have been able to see much of the students' documentation, because in everything that they do, it has to be, we want the site supervisor to know what they're doing and to be able to okay it and to advise, and they're able to see it even more in the virtual format. So there's many advantages that have come about through the virtual format that we're using. Collaboration has been, I believe, improved. I think students have increased their skills in collaborating and interacting with others, because truly it's pretty easy to do when you're using Zoom and WebEx. And of course, they still, with their site supervisors, they still use phone calls, voice calls, emails, and all the things that we've always used, but they've moved forward too, and they've made strides, and they've been able to bring, our students have been able to bring some information and some things to their sites that help the site, because these students are coming right out of a graduate program, and they're experiencing all kinds of new resources that they can share with the site who may not have had them. And so it's an opportunity for all. And overall, it's been an opportunity for students to continue taking what they've learned in their programs and the theory and all that they have learned, and putting it into practice in their real life settings. But we've had to make adjustments, and there have been questions, and there have been modifications along the way, and we have to figure out a new way.
So I was able to host an intern this past summer, and one of the things, there was work to do to figure out how to translate some of the underlying issues from what would have normally been an in-person internship to an online-only internship. The underlying issues include communication, planning and organization, and then demonstrating learning. With respect to communication, so much of our communication includes nonverbal. How is the person antsy? Does the person use their hands as much as I do when they talk? What are the facial expressions? So communication styles, nonverbal is a big part of it, spoken communication as well, and written communication. Kaye mentioned several tools, including email, that continue to be used. In terms of the purposes, what is it that we're trying to do? We want to provide clearly defined learning experiences. We want to be able to evaluate the benefits for the students and for the site. And also for the students themselves, we want them to be able to establish relationships, including professional contacts, because these are going to be people that they will work with after they graduate. What were some of the tools that we decided on? Well, in addition to email, one of the things that we decided on early on, and I talked through with the intern, was we set up weekly video calls. We wanted to use a familiar tool. We wanted to establish a regular time to help us stay on task and adjust, because sometimes there are sometimes things come up and you thought you might have been able to finish a little mini project in a week or two, and then it turns out there's a wrinkle and you have to extend your deadline. But knowing that wrinkle is coming up in a timely fashion helps you adjust your calendar. Also, if you're training someone to do some specific work, the communication tools that are displayed on screen have recording options. So it's very convenient to record that training session, and then the student can go back and watch it again as needed. I think several people have used a variety of these tools. We're on Zoom now. Our campus has used WebEx in the past and still supports it. We use Teams most often, and that's the video tool that we ended up using. I think all of these options have some very convenient features, integrations with other tools and products, including chat, calendar. There can be a shared calendar and a scheduling option for meetings, and then screen sharing as we're doing now. So all of these integrations have been useful. And like I mentioned, here for the internship that I did, we ended up using Teams. Planning and organizing. And I am going to ask for folks to enter something in chat in terms of project management software that you've used. So when I think about planning and organizing, I think about what learning experiences should the intern have? You know, what is it that we want the intern to be able to do? What tasks need to be done, in what order, in what time frame? So, you know, Kaye mentioned before, I think that our internships are 110 hours. Within that 110 hour time frame, what is reasonable to accomplish, and what might be too big? My preference is to train someone, have them work independently with occasional check-ins. I mentioned the weekly calls, and then get back together for some sort of summative reflection, some sort of evaluation at the end. And the reflection is an important piece that goes along with the portfolio. So if we've had chats, I am interested in some of the tools that you all have used for doing planning and organizing.
Yes, Trello was mentioned. A couple of places are using Trello, and nothing else was mentioned, although, you know, like Excel is a more basic way, but that's what we have so far.
Okay, all right, great. Yeah, Excel is convenient because you can generate calendar templates, and that's something that I've played with a little bit. Trello is one of the ones I've used as well, and I think, and one of my students told me that she actually used it at an internship, or not an internship, but some work she was doing with Duke. And I believe it's also been mentioned at NC State to organize some of the electronic resources work there. I prefer a Kanban board project planning option. There are other styles, you know, for project management. You could go with Gantt charts or other project planning tools. But I like the Kanban board, and I'll show you an example of what it looks like, and what are some of the features that I appreciate for using them. Microsoft Planner is the one we ended up using. Asana and Trello are other options. And, you know, once again, I'm thinking not only of the tool itself, but also the integrations. How can it be used with other tools in sort of a combined package to make the internship work? All of them, once again, are integrated with the calendar. You've got document storage and sharing, and that becomes really important when you're working on projects that have multiple pieces that need, maybe you're supposed to export a title list and do some work on that title list. And then maybe you're supposed to take the cleaned up title list and do something else with it. And then maybe, you know, so if you've got stages of work where you need to collect documents, then you're going to want to be able to have an integrated platform that will allow storage and sharing of those documents. And all of them also support task lists, which is one of the most important parts of the organizational scheme to me. So what we see on the chart here, this is from Microsoft Planner, but it's set up in a very similar way. Trello looks almost the same. And I'm using my mouse. I hope you can see that I'm using the mouse to outline the board. So this would be a Trello board, and it has 3 buckets. The buckets are the vertical lists, and you put a new task on each card, and that's what these individual rectangles are called, cards. So, you know, you can see I have 3 buckets here: organizing and professional development output. OER, Open Educational Resources, had to do with the primary project that this intern worked on. And then the 3rd bucket had to do with weekly introductions, because I wanted to facilitate communication with other people in our technical services area here, to talk with other related aspects to support the student's interest. The cards, you can see I've expanded one of the cards here, and there are some features that are very convenient. You can assign that card to a person. Now interns, you know, normally it's an individual intern working at one time, but if you're doing something in a team-based environment, you can assign a card to whoever is on that team that needs to be responsible for the task. There are labels available. You can reassign, a card from one bucket to another. There are 3 progress statuses: not started, in process, and done. You can establish start and due dates. There are notes, checklists, notes, checklists, and attachments that you can do here. And they're hidden right now, but you can also see in the weekly intros bucket that there are 6 completed tasks that have been checked off. So they're hidden when not completed. It's fairly easy to tell, if there is a checklist. This checklist has 6 of 6 items done, or 5 of 5, but only 2 out of these 3. You can see that there are 5 attachments on this course-based requirements card. So it's fairly easy to see all at one fell swoop what the person is working on. It is possible to change your display from the board display toward charts, and if you like Gantt charts, then that display might pique your interest. And there's also a schedule display, so if you've got due dates plugged in, you can have a calendar view to see what those might look like. So this Kanban board for Microsoft Planner, like I said, it looks very similar to what you see in Trello. Asana has several different display methods. This is one of them. Demonstrating learning is one of the other underlying issues. What kinds of work products demonstrate learning? What is it that you want the intern to produce? How can these products be shared with a site supervisor, with a cooperating professor, or with others that might need to be shared with? And how will the site supervisor and professor provide meaningful assessment feedback on these work products? So, if that's the underlying issue, then how did we tackle that issue? My preference here was to use OneDrive. Again, it's a Microsoft product. Some of the advantages are that you can make the files view only or editable. You can also select which people are able to edit the file. You can insert comments. And those features are shared, also with Google Docs and with other document sharing platforms as well. The bonus here was that there was an integration with Planner and Teams. So, when you store something, if you stored an attachment in Planner, it's actually storing that attachment in a OneDrive folder. So, the OneDrive is what we use primarily for spreadsheets, for documents, those sorts of documents. The primary end product that the intern worked on was actually a LibGuide, and it turned out to be very useful for us because that LibGuide could be shared not only among the people who work here in our library, but we could also make it viewable for end users. And so there's a work product that the intern can then point back to and say, this is what I did, here's how I contributed. The intern also participated in some presentations, and in her case, there were some things that she was talking to the people in our departments about, where she was sharing her experiences. And that reflective piece, I think, is also important, and it didn't make it, I think if I were to modify the issues here, reflection would be added to those 3 underlying issues. And then, of course, there is a summative portfolio that the students work on, and the selected documents, and the other required documents that went into that portfolio were placed in task stream. So what worked for us? Well, we ended up using Microsoft Teams, and it's because it tied together the communication, the planning and organizing tools, the methods that we use to collect the work products and to share the various work products that we did. And it tied them all together in a nice, tidy fashion. So that worked very well for us. And if we get the chance to use it again, for future internships, and I think that's what I would like to do. But we're also curious about tools and strategies that others have had, and this is a very timely fashion. There was an article that came out in Library Journal just the other day that just yesterday, in fact, that talked about some of the experiences of some other schools, and I hope we'll get some feedback from those of you who are on the call with us. So what kinds of tools and strategies have you used?
Feel free to enter that into the chat.
And Christine, I'm not sure, or Tony, if it's possible to allow people to unmute, but if people are willing to share verbally, I'm open to that as well.
Yeah, I think the most efficient way would be for people to just use the chat.
Okay. Great.
Nothing. Okay. Virginia says that they had an intern working on site when the pandemic started, and they were already using Trello a lot.
Okay.
And Jenny says we did a lot through Zoom and Google Meet.
Zoom and Google Meet. Okay.
And Virginia expanded that. The student was working on e-resource projects, so they added Zoom meetings, but didn't have to do much else.
Okay. Great. So some of those tools are do have some of the integrations that have been useful and allow for the recording, the variety of communication styles. One of the other issues, that we had to address, one of the things that I was trying to be very mindful of as I went through thinking about the internship itself was the underlying issues and how we might be able to translate those underlying issues into using whatever tools were needed. And what I came up with was communication, planning and organizing, and you can call it collecting work products, you can call it evaluating. And I mentioned a few minutes ago that I would add reflection to that as part of the learning process. Are there other underlying issues to address with internships?
Well, just this past year, the difficulties of what all was happening in the world and our country, and that there's just a lot to process. Plus, a lot of students, as Kaye was saying, a lot of students are working other jobs, so it can be really challenging from areas beyond just the education piece.
Mm-hmm. Right. So sort of a work-life balance, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right. Jenny says UNCG's, okay, well, that's a question. We'll ask that later on. Virginia says she imagines that if the internship relied heavily on working on physical material, that the pivot would be more challenging, and they were fortunate they were already accustomed to doing most of their work virtually.
That's true. That's true. And I know that, thinking of the physical materials for our acquisitions and cataloging folks, some of the acquisitions work could be done online, but somebody has to come in and unpack the boxes too, and scan the items in, and a lot of the cataloging could be done from home. But if you're cataloging physical materials, one of the strategies that some of our cataloging folks have used is they would come in and make they would be here for a little while, and we use a shared calendar for that scheduling process. They would come in and make photocopies of the title pages, whatever initial pages they needed to use for their cataloging purposes. And then they could take those photocopies home to complete the cataloging. So there are other strategies with a sort of a mix of coming in person at a time when you can take whatever precautions you need and find ways to use that time in the office to enable the work from home.
And Joseph, someone just asked a question about site supervisor. Do we have an evaluation? And I can't see it right this minute, but it was, do you have an evaluation in place with this from the site supervisor? And if I read that correctly, yes, we do. And we also have interaction with the site supervisor throughout the internship from the university, but we have a final, and that's part of the grade. We have a final evaluation form that the site supervisor fills out, and then they make note of special points about the person or issues. And so, yes, we do have an evaluation form. I hope that answered the question.
And we do have a couple of other questions if you're ready for that. Do you have a formalized feedback process in place for site managers and students to assess tech problems, communications issues, etc.? I guess that might be what you were referring to.
Well, I was, but I think
yeah.
I was not answering it correctly because I read it wrong. I was talking about the site supervisor, but as far as a formalized feedback process, actually, I don't think we do. We have, and that's a point we need to incorporate. We have ongoing feedback, and with this intern and the site supervisor, they have their ongoing back and forth, and we do from the university's point of view too. But it's not a formalized process just to assess tech problems and communication problems. That part is built into the evaluation form, but it's a total evaluation.
All right, thanks. And then UNCG's LIS program implemented a similar option for their capstone. And as a librarian at UNCG, she's been thinking a lot about her responsibilities with this and asks, are librarians at ECU expected to offer internship opportunities, or is it opt-in?
This has to do with me as a library employee being an internship site.
Right.
It's not required. It's an opt-in. And in fact, I was happy that Kaye approached me asking if I would be interested. One of the other concerns that I think you were hinting at, Christine, earlier, has to do with so many different things going on and with people being scattered and at home, it can be a little difficult to feel included, to get to know other people and feel like you're part of a team. So for interns who are going to have a limited time with the people that they're working with, I'm curious about how people have tried to make them feel included, to make them feel part of the team. And while we're waiting on some of the chats to come in, I can mention that one of the strategies that I tried was to set up these little weekly related related meetings and to ask the intern to schedule meetings with the other people that she might be working with as in an effort to get to know them. And then we had one call where everybody was all on the call at the same time. But it's not clear. Maybe that worked, maybe it didn't. I'm not quite sure. and I'm curious about strategies that other people might have tried.
Nothing in the chat quite yet.
That is a very good point, though. We need to look further into that to see what we can do to provide that element that is so readily available in a face-to-face. The coffee breaks, as someone just said, the supervisor of our intern started regular coffee breaks that included the intern. I think that's wonderful. And I think it's especially important to have them included in all the meetings and highlighted a little bit. But we want to do more. And so if you have any ideas and can share, we really will appreciate those.
Virginia says the supervisor of our intern started regular, the coffee breaks that include the intern more informal time to get to know colleagues rather than just the work focused meetings. So the coffee breaks provided that.
Thank you.
We did have another question. There's still time to enter in chat your comments on that, but how familiar with the students were the students with the various tools you used during the internship? And I think that we recognize that it's helpful for future opportunities for the students that they can explain their own experience using project planning tools and other products.
So, you know, the student who worked with me, she, of course, you know, she was fine using OneDrive. She'd used that before. We, I think, did our initial call on Zoom, and I asked her if she was willing to give Teams calls a try, and she picked up on that very quickly. I asked her if I could set up Microsoft Planner. I don't think she had tried that before, but once again, she was a very fast learner, and she really took to it. So I think those tools were new, and if she had needed it, I would have wanted to provide some brief orientation. This is what the tool is. Here's how I imagine us using it. And I did kind of talk her through when I set up the board. These are the different, these are the boards, these are the buckets. This is how I imagine us using it. Do you have questions? So we actually did that on a video call and sharing the screen, you know, at the same time. So I knew what she was looking at. That was helpful, I think.
Okay, good. We have another comment from Virginia. We are at our last minute here, but they've found Kanban, Kanban. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. Kanban-based tools generally have an easy learning curve as they've trained staff with different backgrounds and experiences on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's so visual, I think really helps me. You know, I like to point and click, and I'm not too worried about breaking something. Like, well, sorry, don't tell the tech guy that. But I like to point and click, and I'm not too worried about breaking stuff. So the fact that it's so visual, I think, is a really helpful part of this. Well, I know we're getting close. We would love to hear from you. We would love to get some ideas. And if you have any questions or feedback for us, please contact us.
Thank you
so
all
much
for your time.
We appreciate it, Kaye and Joseph. And thanks. We'll have the next session starting at 11:15, and that is the sponsor lightning rounds. Thank you.
Thank you.